So we got to learn Malaysian language, just how to do greet, so saying hello and goodbye, and then we also got to say how to order food at a restaurant. And it was all interesting learning a new language, but with the support of our buddies and the Malaysian lecturers, we were able to learn some new words. We had a bit of pressure, just with the other students being able to learn the words quickly and be able to say the words and pronounce it correctly, and so that put pressure on me to learn it more quickly, and then I became frustrated and confused, but in the end, with the help of the buddies, I was able to pronounce them more correctly and felt a bit more calm. I think this makes me realise how difficult it can be for children in your class who are learning English as an additional language, and how hard it is for them to learn English, and being able to support them through understanding the language by giving them time to learn it, just having a slower pace and clear pronunciations of words. It's important to create an open and calm environment as well, so the children feel comfortable. So I felt that within our experience in the language lesson, that we felt more calm and able to learn the words because everyone was at the same level, and we got to learn it in pairs, so we got to practice with our pairs and understand the language more. Having our Malaysian buddies there was excellent, so they were with us in each pair and they helped us pronunciate each word, and if we had difficulties they were able to help, and then we got to practice it a few times and then felt comfortable speaking it in front of the class, so I thought that was a good strategy to have. And then we were able to experience a music lesson in Malaysian, so the lecturer was speaking in spoke the lesson in Malaysian language, Malay, and that was an interesting concept to have, as it was very confusing and frustrating at times because we couldn't understand what the lesson was about, but we just had to look at the gestures and the PowerPoint slides to work out what she was talking about. We also looked at the students and see how they interacted with her and what their body language and the gestures they used to work it out. At times it was just confusing, but the teacher was really helpful in just speaking some words in English to help us understand where she was up to and making sure that we could understand it. So that was a great strategy to use, and this lesson was really important and significant for us, just to see how ELD learners feel in a classroom in which everyone speaks English and they don't understand that language. So we're able to see that how confused and frustrated they become because that's how we feel. So I think that was just a great way for us to empathise with ELD learners and understand how we can change our pedagogies to make sure that they don't feel that way and that they are supported and they're not confused and they're able to learn through implementing strategies such as talking slower, maybe having them work in groups so that they can interact with other students and the other students can help them understand the language. Also having more images to help them understand where the lesson's going, gestures, and also just pausing to make sure that they understand the topic. So I think these are all important strategies to have. Also, that through this lesson we got to experience the language by them interacting with us and showing us how the instruments that they use, such as the musical instruments such as the musical instruments and also the Malaysian dance. So then we were able to interact, and even though we didn't speak the same language, through gestures we were able to follow their actions and be part of the cultural dance and the instrumental playing. So this was just really great experience, and I really enjoyed sitting there listening to a lesson that was taught in Malay, and I didn't understand what the lecturer was saying, but yeah, just made us realise how hard that it is for ELD learners. So that was one great lesson. We also got to have a session on it was a Malaysian education, the history of it, which was really interesting just to show us the similarities and differences between the Malaysian culture and the Australian culture, and how the education systems are different, and even universities. I think what stood out for me was how in primary school, the children move from class to class to different subject areas, whereas in Australia they stay in the one classroom with the one teacher for the whole year. When in Malaysia they move around and have different teachers for different subjects. So when they go to university, the educators learn a subject area just as you would in high school. So they would learn be a maths teacher or English teacher, and that's what they do in the primary schools. So that was one interesting point, and also that for university, that they are given an allowance to go to university. So the government supplies them with an allowance that to enter the university after they've had go through an interview process. Then they go to university, and then they get an allowance. So that's very different to our university system. Also, today we visited the historical museum in KL, and that taught us gave us more insight into the Malaysian culture and all their religion and the different ethnicity groups and how that all came about. That was really good just to get an idea of how Malaysia came to be with some different cultures. We had great presenters, and they told us, the main thing they emphasised was about their love for their Prime Minister, the previous one, and how great he was in developing, Malaysia into what it is now, and developing transport and education system, and they highly regard him in the way they speak. It's very different to Australia, how in the media we attack our prime ministers and put them down, whereas in Malaysia that is they don't do that. They highly speak of their prime ministers, and that's another point where our Malaysian student buddies, they were very knowledgeable about their own history. So when we were going around the museum, we were able to ask them questions, and they answered them, which I believe is also different to Australia, because I don't know a lot about the Australian history, so I wouldn't feel comfortable telling another person coming to Australia about our history, because I wouldn't be confident enough, whereas they felt very confident, and they were able to tell us, dates and the names of previous prime ministers and who was here and who did that. So I think that was great to see how much of their history is probably taught in in high schools, and so they are able to show each other, share that cultural history, and have a better understanding of their own culture and all that. We went and visited the Prime Minister's house, and